is one thing that I would like parents to teach their children, teach them to fail. Because this is how they're going to discover what makes them happy. When you focus on the problem, you have a North Star that guides you towards the direction. And you also going to tell way more compelling story. When your customer care, they want you to be successful and they will help you to become successful. Now, the advice for every hiring manager is that every time that you hire someone new, what you really want to do is mark your calendar for 30 days down the road, so 1 month, and ask yourself one question. Knowing what I know today, would I hire this person?
Está começando o PrimoCast, o podcast oficial do Grupo Primo. E no episódio de hoje a gente vai bater um papo com Uri Levine. Você conhece esse cara? Esse cara é só o co-fundador do Waze e da Moovit. São duas startups de mobilidade que foram vendidas por 1,1 bilhão cada uma para o Google e outra para a Intel. E depois dessas duas grandes conquistas, o Uri passou a se dedicar um pouco mais ao lado de being a teacher, como ele diz. Ou seja, ele também virou um professor, além de ter outras startups que estão aqui na boca do gol para virar o terceiro, quarto unicórnio dele. Ele também escreveu o livro dele, chamado Apaixone-se pelo problema, não pela solução. Um livro de mais de 400 páginas, que eu vou deixar inclusive aqui o link na descrição para vocês. Ele está aqui, então sem mais delongas, seja muito bem-vindo, Uri.
Thank you. Really happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Uri, on this podcast, the idea is to go through your story, but focus mainly on your learnings. So you can share with us key principles to business success and maybe your mistakes also. I took some prints of lecture. I watched it earlier of you, and I'll ask some questions of these later. But thank you so much. First question. Do you consider yourself someone who made more mistakes than the opposite?
Of course.
Yes?
At the end of the day, building a startup is a journey of failures, right? So you go into this journey and you believe that you know everything, but the reality is that you try something new and no one knows, right? And so you try one thing and it doesn't work. You try another thing and it doesn't work. You keep on trying multiple things until you find the one thing that does work. This journey of failure is so dramatic. There are so many mistakes, so many failures that you are making throughout the journey. And the most important part is that you get up, right? Mm-hmm. Every time that you fall, every time that you make a mistake, you go back and fix it and move forward. Mm-hmm. And if you realize that building a startup is a journey of failures, then there are two immediate conclusions, right? The first one is that if you're afraid to fail, in reality, you already failed because you're not going to try. Albert Einstein used to say that if you haven't failed, that because you haven't tried new things before. If you're going to try new things, you will fail. The second one is that you want to fail fast, because the faster that you fail, you still have plenty of time to try another attempt, another version of the product, another go-to-market approach, another attempt to make it successful. And the more attempts that you have, you've simply increased the likelihood of being successful, because you only need it to work once. Once you figure that out, then it's done. Until you get there, a lot of mistakes.
But when you talk about failures, and I had plenty of failures also in my life, what can you say that is deeper and maybe more technical about failures? Because do you think we should expose ourselves to all kinds of failures, or are there some of the failures we must be like very afraid and should not go close to this kind of failures that maybe takes us out of the game? Is there any measurement of risk you use when you are thinking about trying something new, even though you can fail on that?
So, people will go into the entrepreneurship journey when their passion for change is greater than the fear of failure and the alternative cost, whatever the alternative cost is, right? And this is really important because you want to be passionate about what you're doing. You want to fall in love with the idea, with the value that you are going to create. And then you are less afraid. Then you are actually going to do that. Now, if there is one thing that I would like parents to teach their children, teach them to fail. Because this is how they're going to discover what makes them happy. At the end of the day, parents want only one thing for their children, to be happy.
To the help. If they're not selfish, right?
Yeah.
Because if they're selfish, the idea is not to make the kids happy, but to be close, you know. But thank you so much for sharing this. Uri, when you're talking about, how old are you right now?
59.
59. So when did you start your entrepreneurship journey?
In year 2000, when I was 35. But I started Waze when I was 42. My first startup that I was part of was doing mobile email back in year 2000.
2000.
And turned out to be unsuccessful.
Because of the timing, maybe? Or because of the model?
We thought that we had the right approach, but then BlackBerry came out and had a completely different approach, and their approach was better than us.
Understood. So you started on your entrepreneurship with 30.
35.
With 30. And what did you do from the 30s to the 42?
So in the early phase of my career, I was a software developer, software engineer, and I was doing that mostly at a company called Converse Technology. So you might not remember, but long time ago, we used to have voicemail that when you get a call, that was answering the call on your behalf, and Converse was the leading of that space. And I started my career there as a software developer, and then I moved to marketing and product and business and so forth.
And then you created Waze on 42, right?
Yeah, I started in 2007 when I was 42.
And how the idea came up? When the idea came up, the Waze was already as it is today, or it started as something very different and it started to evolve during the time?
So the main thing remains exactly the same, right? So the vision that we had is of crowdsourcing traffic information, right? So the most important part is that the driver ahead of you on the road, they know something that is really, really important for you. And for them, it doesn't matter anymore, right? They stuck in traffic, you want to know that, right? And my eureka moment was somewhere in 2006 that I realized that really what I need is someone to be ahead of me on the road to tell me what's going on. But it was only in 2007 that I met my other two co-founders that we decided that this is what we're going to do. And the interesting part was crowdsource everything, not just traffic information and speed cams, but the map data itself. So that was the magic of Waze. We crowdsource everything. And we started in 2007. We built the first prototype running on a PDA. Remember, long time ago?
PDA is like a kind of cell phone.
It was before the cell phones, right? It was like a very ancient tablet that was before the smartphones even, and we built the first version on that. And we
just a second. When you say we built, it was like you were one of the people
I didn't.
coding.
Even though that I used to be software engineer, my last line of code was checked in somewhere in 1996, right? So in 2007, I already forgot most of it.
Understood.
But the other two co-founders, they were the technical people, and they were the one that actually built.
But a quick question here. Do you think your background on studying coding and all of that when you were younger helped you to at least manage the team, or it was irrelevant? So
the experience that you gain is always relevant. Whether or not the experience is in the technological side or not doesn't make any difference, right? So I would imagine that you don't have software engineer background and you still built your company and it seems to be very successful, right? So it's not necessarily that the technological background is the one that helps you to become successful, but the overall experience does, right? Whatever the overall experience is, this is a lot.
Okay. So you started Waze, and one thing you told me is very important, because the crowdsourcing information is the core and remain the core through the development of the application.
Yes.
But what is the journey like? I mean, you started thinking big, or you started with this little idea that had some excitement for you. Did you imagine it was supposed to be so big as it is today?
So we did, right? Because we knew that we are trying to solve a very big problem, right? Traffic jams is a big problem, and it's a big problem everywhere, right? And usually startup that starts in Israel, they think global from the first day, right? Because Israel is a small place. And one of the challenges of the ecosystem here in Brazil is that you don't think global from the first day. You think about the Brazilian market, which is big. And then you end up with limited ability to growth once you utilize once you become a market leader in the Brazilian market. Growing outside of the market is then become harder. So you don't see a lot of global leaders coming out of Brazil, but you do see global leaders coming out of Israel or other small places, right? So small places have an advantage of thinking global from the first day. So we thought that this is what we're going to do. But the vision that we had initially is that we're going to help people to avoid traffic jams. This is not the most significant value of Waze today. If you would ask people, they will tell you that creating certainty is the most significant value. You know how long it's going to take you to get there. That's it. The fact that there is no faster way, it doesn't make any difference. You know how long.
Yeah. This applies to myself. When I enter in the car, even though I know the way, I need to put the address in the Waze. If I don't, I started to become anxious.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
You know, it's funny. When I was here to launch Waze in Brazil in 2010, I was scheduling multiple meetings and everyone would ask me, okay, where do you stay? We will come to your hotel because there is no way that you can come to our office. And then I would ask them when. And they will tell me in the morning because you're unable to plan and to know exactly how long it's going to take you. One of the most important features of Waze is to actually the ability to ask Waze, how long will it take me to get there, or find me the best route, not right now, later on in the afternoon or tomorrow or Monday morning or whatever. And then you can plan. And the funny part is that, Marcial, my publisher from Citadel is here, and he didn't know about this feature. I only told him about it yesterday, right? And so it turns out to be what I believe one of the most important features in Brazil, because the ability to plan and know how long it's going to take you on a future ride adds a lot to the business community. And if there are people that don't know that, then they should.
Sure, now they do. Now they do. And a quick question: you started Waze, and it was a very successful journey, because we know already what happened in the end of your journey on Waze. So it's a very successful journey. But when you started this journey, and a lot of people here that watches me are usually starting a journey, or they are during a journey. Some of them was more successful, some of them facing some tough situations. But did you have something like a business plan when you started? Did you have like the business model known before starting? What did you have before, and what changed during the journey?
So I knew everything before, and everything changed.
Okay.
That's really easy. Look, this is really important to understand. I can define the journey of building a startup into 3 dimensions, right? So one of them we spoke about, the journey of failures, right? It's also a roller coaster journey with ups and downs and ups and downs. And if you will tell me that all the businesses in the world have ups and downs, I agree. But the frequency of those when you are building startup, way more, could be few times a day, right? I think that I heard the best quote on that from Ben Horowitz. Ben Horowitz is one of the founders of Andreessen Horowitz venture capital firm. And before that, he used to be a CEO of a startup. And he was asked whether or not he was sleeping well at night as a CEO of a startup. He said, oh yeah, I slept like a baby. I woke up every 2 hours and cried, right? And so this is the reality of the roller coaster journey, but it's also a very long journey. And the longest part is until you figure out product market fit. And product market fit is really simple. That means that you create value to your customers. If you don't figure out product market fit, you will die. That's the most important part of all the businesses in the world, that you need to create value to your customers. If you don't, you will die. So we define, and by the way, product market fit have one metric: retention. That's really simple. If you create value, they will come back. That's it. If they are not coming back, that means that you are not creating value. Right? So for a second, I want us to think of maybe all the applications that you're using everywhere, right? So Waze and WhatsApp and Uber and Netflix and searching Google and whatever it is, and ask yourself, what is the difference between any of those today and the first time that you have used that? And the answer is that there is no difference. We are using Waze today the same way that we used Waze for the first time in our life. We are searching Google the same way that we searched Google for the first time in our life. So once a company figure out their product market fit, they don't change that anymore. That's the value that they bring to their customers. They don't change that anymore. What we don't know is how long did it take them, right? Because beforehand, we never heard about it. For Waze, it was 4 years. People in Brazil started to use Waze in 2011. We started in 2007. 4 years until we became good enough that people would actually use Waze, right? For Microsoft, it was 5 years, right? For Netflix, it was 10 years. Now, if you'll tell me today everything is different because of AI and ChatGPT just started, no, they're almost 8 years old already, right? So it took them 6 years until we heard the name for the first time in our life. Creating value, figuring out product market fit, because it's a roller coaster journey, long journey and journey of failure takes time for all the successful companies. And those that did not, they simply died. That's it. We started, as I told you, in 2007. Then we tried to raise capital. That took us 9 months. Now you'll say, okay, wait a minute, but Israel have a lot of venture capital firm. Yeah, and it still was 9 months, right?
Just a second here. It was your first time getting money from venture capital?
Not really. I actually had money before on a previous startup.
What can you share with us on knowledge about fundraising startups and businesses? Because you probably met a lot of different people and so try to sell and
It's if we say that building startup is a roller coaster journey, then I want us to think of raising capital as roller coaster journey in the dark. You don't even know what's coming, right? Because this is a different ball game. It's really a different ball game. But one of the interesting and maybe 3 conclusions that are really, really important. The first one is that after I sold Waze, I spoke with many of the venture capital firms and I asked them one very interesting question.
After selling the Waze?
After selling the Waze. So I'm already very successful entrepreneur with, the credibility of building a unicorn and so forth. So the dialogue was quite open, right? And I remember one of them that I was asking we were sitting in a small room like this one, right? And I was asking the partner at the VC, how long does it take you to decide if you like the entrepreneur or not? So we're sitting in a small room, right? The guy is looking at me, looking at the door, looking at me again and says, before they sit down, right? So this is how fast it takes us to establish the first impression. Now, if you say, no, it doesn't make sense. Okay, how long does it take you to decide if you like a new candidate or not? Seconds. You go on a date. How long does it take you to decide if you like the date or not? Seconds. And then you might allow yourself a few more minutes to either let the first impression solidifies or to change that. Now, if this is the case and you are going to pitch, then you need to start with the strongest point at the beginning, whatever it is. And I don't care what it is. If this is about the team, then start with that. If this is about the size of the problem, start with that. If this is about, I don't know, whatever it is, start with that. Because by the time you'll get there, it might be irrelevant anymore. They already made up their mind. So this is the first one. The second one is that I spoke with many investors that made seed investment, right? So the first investment into a company. And I asked them, why did you decide to say yes? And I did that with multiple venture capital firms. And what I heard was always the same. I like the CEO. I like the story. That's it. I like the CEO. I like the story. Nothing else. Then you said, okay, 2 things that I will tell you here. 1, CEO goes alone to raise capital. Alone.
CEO goes alone.
Not with the team. You need to shine. If you want to shine, then you have to be there by yourself. No other people, no one else, right? Just you. And the other one is learn how to tell a good story. And good story is about creating emotional engagement, right? So you want people to believe, or you want them that they would think or they would feel that they want to be part of the story. And if you don't know how to tell a good story, then go and learn how to tell a good story. Because if you don't, then they are not going to like either you or the story, and that's it, end of story. They are not going to invest. The most important part, it's a different ball game, right? So, so just imagine that Brazil is not that great these days, but we play football against the US, right? Mm-hmm. If this is Brazilian football, then we're going to win. If this is American football, we're going to lose. It's a different ball game, right? Mm-hmm. When you realize that this is a different ball game, and I actually have 2 chapters about fundraising, right? In my book, there are 2 chapters, 5A and 5B, because it's so complex. Then you have to understand that you are going to hear 100 times no. And it's not that they know better than you. This is the model, right? This is the model. A venture capitalist partner in a firm is likely to see 1 or 200 companies per year and invest in 1 or 2, 1%, 1 out of 100. So that immediately means that on your side, you need to plan for meeting 100 investors, right? And one of them is going to say yes. It's not necessarily that correlation, but you will get used to hear no and no and no and no. Mm-hmm. And trust me, it's frustrating and discouraging. And you need to keep on doing that.
Yeah. Something I learned very recently is that the more no's you get, the higher the profits. Because, for example, I'm selling through my phone and I make 100 calls a day. And then I increase the price by 100%, for example. I'll probably hear more no's, but I probably won't sell 50% less. Probably, not for sure, but probably. So the more no's, the more profits. And when you're pitching, the more pitches, more yes you have.
Agree. So this is really, you take the examples of you selling a product, right? The conversion ratio of a phone call when you are selling a product should be about anywhere between 25 to 35%, right? So this is good sales pitch. Good sales pitch, good salesperson would have this conversion. Mm-hmm. In fundraising, it's 1%.
1%.
This is something new to everyone, right? Because just imagine, think of the following, right? So you go on 100 dates and everyone tells you no, right? If this is the ratio, then that will be end of humanity, right? Because we will simply stop, right? Mm-hmm. But entrepreneur, the most important behavior of an entrepreneur is never give up. Never give up. No matter what happens, you keep on fighting uphill, downhill, under severe conditions, you never give up.
But here's a question. When I think about never giving up, my reflection is it may depend on the direction you are aiming for. Because if I don't give up, but I'm on this direction and I have this wall, doesn't matter if I don't give up because there's a wall in front of me.
Then so what you're saying is that you will die. Yes.
Yes. So do you think, how to know for sure we're on the right direction for having the courage and resilience of not saying no, I don't stop?
So 2 things. One is
it's hard.
It's super hard, right? And people ask
because
me,
it may be crazy. For example, you made something nobody heard of before you made. Yeah. So how to know it can be a good thing?
And so the first thing is that you look at the top 10 companies of the world today, and all of them started recently, right? So so the oldest one is Microsoft, and it's almost 50 years old, less than 50 years old, right? So this is really important, right? Entrepreneurs are the ones that are creating the change. And part of it is that they never give up, and part of it, some might have died during their try, right? But I think that there are 2 factors here. One is the journey is about value creation. Mm-hmm. By the way, the name of the book, Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution. Mm-hmm. is coming from the value creation. The simplest way to create value is solve a problem. So if you want to start your journey, I would say start with a problem. Think of a problem, a big problem, something that is worth solving, something that the world will become a better place if you solve it. And then you ask yourself, so who has this problem? Now, if you happen to be the only person on the planet with this problem, you know what, I can recommend you a therapist. Way faster and cheaper than building a startup. But if a lot of people actually have this problem, what you really want to do next is go and speak with those people and understand their perception of the problem, and only then start to think about the solution. When you focus on the problem, then you have a North Star that guides you towards the direction, and you also going to tell a way more compelling story. If I would be here in 2007 and I will tell you that I'm going to build an AI crowdsource-based navigation system, then you're going to say, oh yeah, very interesting. But you don't care. If I will tell you I'm going to help you to avoid traffic jams, then you do care. When your customer care, they want you to be successful and they will help you to become successful. So this is the fall in love with the problem, not the solution theory. But the important part is that you actually qualify the problem before you even start your journey. And then you try to solve it. The most important progress that you can make is when you listen to your customers, in particular, until you figure out product market fit. So to a certain extent, I would say, look, we define it as a journey of failures. And there are so many iterations that you're going to make. The biggest enemy of good enough is perfect. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be good enough in order to win the market. And the way that you're going to become good enough, and this is really scary for most entrepreneurs, is that you're going to start not good enough and listen to the feedbacks that you get from your customers. And then you improve and improve and improve based on the feedback only in order to make it good enough. So just imagine that there are two twin sister companies, right? Company A and Company B, that they're doing exactly the same thing, right? And they have, twin brothers and sister teams, or they have exactly the same teams and they're making exactly the same progress until one day Company A says, our product is really bad. We need to keep on building that, right? And Company B is saying, our product is really bad, but we are going to go to the market with it. From this point on, Company B is making way faster progress than Company A and way more likely to win the market. Now, when I tell that to entrepreneurs, occasionally they will tell me, oh, you don't understand. Our product is really bad. It's embarrassing, right? We're going to lose all of our customers. And I will tell them, wait a minute, you don't have customers. We're going to hurt our brand name. No, you don't have a brand name. You will have a brand name once you become successful. And the way to do that is with starting with not good enough and iterate and iterate and iterate. So how do you know that you are not against the wall? You go to the users and you speak with them. That's it.
That's a good advice. And that's a very good advice. And you talked about not being perfect, but being good enough. This is, in my opinion, the mindset of a good entrepreneur. For example, here in Brazil, I talk to tons of people. I have more than 20 million subscribers on all my channels. And here in our company, we talk to more than 40 million people every month. But even though my English is not perfect, I started a channel called Rich Cousin. So I started to produce content in English, even though my English is not perfect, but it's a better way to start because I'll improve every day, focusing on the same thing. This is the idea of the good enough, or maybe the not so bad. It's to start and to get better.
I think this is critical behavior, right? And because what follows this behavior is part of the culture of the company, right? So we realize that we are not perfect, and therefore we allow mistakes and we allow failures. And when this happens, then we try to figure out what went wrong and not whom to blame, right? That's the key, right? Mm-hmm. When something happens, not who, but what. What we can improve, whom. So you're going to fire someone, and the result is other people will be afraid to make mistakes. And when they're afraid to make mistakes, they're not going to try something new. And therefore, you prevent innovation, right? No one is going to try something new if they know that the risk is that they're going to lose their job.
So the idea is to focus on the what, not on the whom, because if we do it, maybe people will be so afraid that they will stop innovating.
Exactly.
And the company may die on long term. Okay. And two things I didn't understand about your story. First, when you're talking about falling in love with the problem, and you were telling us about the traffic problem back on the days Waze was created. How did you manage to know this problem? This may be empiric, but did you make any research? Did you talk to any customers like on the streets or the friend? Did you make something more scientific? I don't know.
So the scientific approach is go and speak with 100 people. That's the scientific approach. And the reason that I say that is that if I'll tell you go and speak with people, then you're going to speak with your wife and best friends, and you'll tell me, oh, they said go and do that, right? And so you go and do that, right? I want you to get out of your comfort zone. Speak with people that you don't know. So when you think about 100 people, then you start to speak with people that you don't know, and that allows you to qualify. You don't really need to speak with 100 people, because after 10 or 20, you will have either the conviction that this is not into the right directions, and or this is the right direction. And by the way, I can help you out to sort those answers, right? So if you tell someone, okay, this is the problem I would like to address, what do you think about this problem? And they will tell you, oh, I know someone that has this problem. This is not good. But if they'll tell you, no, this is not the problem. The problem is, and they will give you their version of the problem, this is good. So the qualification is about listening to what they tell you, right? And in most cases, what you will see is that it will allow you to understand the problem better and what is it that you need to solve. Hopefully, it will now allow you to figure out the nature of the beast, right? So what is really the problem and not what is the perception of the problem. The second one is that will allow you to understand which type of people, what target audience you actually have, right? Some people that you thought that might have this problem, they actually don't, right? And so if I would ask someone, so who has this problem, and they will tell me everyone, then the next thing that comes to my mind is, wait a minute, I don't have this problem, so it's not everyone, right? I'm not part of it, right? And so the qualifications of the relevant of the segments is really, really critical. And this happens when you're actually doing your qualification and dialogues before you even go and try to solve something. And then the next phase, I will say, think of the fastest way to demonstrate the value. Now, in the case of Waze, because we needed real-time traffic, then we had to build an app and the server and everything. But in many cases, you don't need to build anything. You can do manual work and provide them the value that you're supposed to provide them, right? So do that and see if the value is meaningful for them. Because when you speak about futuristic solution, then everyone will tell you, yeah, that's a good idea. That doesn't say that they're going to use it, right? No, if I will ask you, okay, imagine that in your next car, instead of having a steering wheel, they're going to be a joystick, right? Do you like that? And you know, best, you're going to tell me, let's try, right? Let's try. The let's try is really, really important, because then what we really needed is I don't need to build all the technology. What I need to do is make sure that I'm able to deliver you the value.
Okay. And the second question is, what exactly was Waze's business model? Because when we talk about business model, we usually think about the acquisition and sales, the revenue. But I'm not sure, but Waze was, and maybe still, like free to use. So what was the business model of Waze?
So when we started, we thought that because we crowdsource everything, then we are going to sell traffic information to authorities, to logistics companies, and so forth. Eventually, we ended up with an advertisement model, and Waze has the right, the right use case to build advertisement model. Right? For advertisement model, what you need is a lot of users, high frequency of use, and long durations of use. Waze has all of them. So it's right for advertisement. If you don't have all those ingredients, then advertisement is not the right model for you. But when we started, we didn't think that this is going to be the model. We only figured that out later. And I think today there is no advertisement anymore. I don't know what happened, but I left Waze 2013, so 11 years ago, just after the acquisition, so I can build more startups, and this is what I was doing since then. And I think this is this business model was working beautifully for Waze. It was not in 2013, but over the years, it turns out to be very profitable. Okay. Look, you have to have business model in mind, right? You cannot go and say, I don't know, I'll figure that out. Because you will not be able to raise capital. They want to think of you as someone that think about the business as well. Now, to a certain extent, I would say if you create a lot of value, you will figure out a business model.
Okay. Do you have any wisdom to share with us about being diluted as a founder? Because when you start a startup, I see some people doing it wrongly because they start being diluted very early, and then they have little equity left to dilute a little more. Do you have some knowledge on that topic for us?
So we were heavily diluted, right?
From the start?
From this throughout the journey, right? So we raised capital multiple times, and we got diluted multiple times, and in the end result is that at the day of the acquisition, I had less than 3% of the company. Right? And then, by the way, and then you pay taxes, and then you get divorced, and then you end up with way less than what people would like to think that you actually have. But the important part is, in most cases, what will happen is that if you get severely diluted into below a certain level, then you will get re-up of options or equity in order to compensate for that. So if there is an assumption that you are not going to be diluted, then you are wrong. You need the cash in order to make it successful. The most important part is making it successful. The dilution will come anyhow. And if you will get diluted below a certain level, then hopefully your board will make sure that you're being compensated. And if not, then you will negotiate that.
Yes. I have some friends that when they sold the companies, they had like less than 3%, less than 5%, 1%. And what they say is they kind of regret it. But on the other hand, they say they wouldn't be able to make the business grew as it grew. So it's kind of, I don't know, at least you developed a brand. Now you have like a good brand. You are the founder of a very successful company, a billionaire company. And I'm talking to you as someone who is positioned as a student. So I'm loving to develop myself hearing from you. But you got a lot of positive things. And you wrote a book also. And I want to ask something about this book, because it's called Fall in Love with the Problem and Not the Solution. And you told us a little about what you mean by that. But how's the book like divided? Do these have some parts, different parts? Do we talk about the problem, only how to find the problem, or how is it divided?
So, so I'm an entrepreneur, right? No doubt about it. I built multiple companies, but I'm also a teacher. So I feel equally rewarded if I build stuff myself or I guide someone to build it. And when I wrote the book, that was fulfilling my destiny as a teacher, right? Sharing my know-how of how to build unicorns, how to build successful companies. Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, called that the Bible for entrepreneurs because it deals with all the aspects of building a startup, right?
And the introduction is from Steve Wozniak, right?
Yeah. The forward is from Steve Wozniak, and when I sent him the first chapter to read, he told me, "I wish I had that when I started." So it actually, in that sense, it's the Bible, right? It's the whole process from thinking of ideas, qualifying ideas, into understanding user, fundraising, product market fit, finding business model, growth, going global, selling the company. So all the different phases are covered in the book. And for me, this is like, sharing the know-how. And at the end of the day, there are not a lot of people that build unicorns. There are only 64 people that have built 2 unicorns. 64, yeah. That's what I heard.
Congratulations. And you're building your third one.
I'm building my third one and hopefully the fourth one and so forth. I'll speak about that in a second. But very few of those are also teachers. So what I share in the book is the know-how and not just a theory, right? This is how you do it. And what I had in my mind is to help entrepreneurs to become successful, to help business people to become successful, to help everyone to become successful, right? So for a second, I would say an interesting feedback that I got, someone told me, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I bought the book, this is absolutely amazing. And then my mom took the book and she is a principal at school. And she told me this is the best education book she ever had read, right? So that was not meant to be an education, but it turns out to be very, very empowering. And I'll tell you, a very simple example, right? One of the chapters in the book called Firing and Hiring. Now, the inspiration to write this chapter was when I spoke with many entrepreneurs that their startup failed. I asked them why, what happened, right? And about half told me the team was not right. And I kept on asking, okay, what do you mean the team was not right? And what I heard the most is, we had this guy not good enough and this guy not good enough. So not good enough was the main reason. Another reason that I heard is that we had communication issues, right? Something that I actually called ego management issues. And then I asked them the most interesting question. When did you know that the team is not right? And all of them told me within the first month. Within the first month. Then you say, wait a minute, if you knew within the first month that the team is not right and you didn't do anything, the problem was not that the team was not right. The problem was that the CEO did not make hard decisions. Making hard decisions is hard. Making easy decisions is easy. When I wrote this book and I sent the book proposal to some of the publisher, many of them came back and say, oh, it shouldn't be firing and hiring. It should be hiring and firing. And I said, no, firing is a hard decision. Hiring is easy decision. First of all, you have to learn how to make these hard decisions. Because at the end of the day, if you are a great hiring manager, you're still going to have hires that you don't like. And so you will need to deal with those that you don't like for the following reason. If you know within a month that someone that you hired is not the right person, everyone knows. Everyone knows, and the CEO doesn't do anything. That's the nature of the beast. The result is always the same. The top performing people, they would leave. And they would leave because they don't want to be in an organization that is unable to make hard decisions, and they would leave because they have a choice. Now, the advice for every hiring manager is that every time that you hire someone new, what you really want to do is mark your calendar for 30 days down the road, so 1 month, and ask yourself one question. Knowing what I know today, would I hire this person? Now, if the answer is yes, go to this person and tell them that you are really excited that they've joined, they're exceeding your expectation, and if this is a startup, then give them more equity. But if the answer is no, fire them immediately. They're already set on a trajectory of not being successful. And they create damage not just to themselves, and to you, but also to the rest of the organization. Making hard decisions is hard. Making easy decisions is easy. Now, you'll tell me this is for startup. Absolutely, this is for startup. This is perhaps the second most important behavior of successful CEO of a startup. The first one is resilience, right? So never give up. The second one is make hard decisions with conviction. But this is true for each and every business. This is true for every hire. This is true for everything in your life. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. And you have the ability to decide what is it going to be, right? Then make those hard decisions. Otherwise, you live in the past and not in the future.
And that's very kind of you to share with us all of that as a teacher, because we don't learn this at school.
I agree. Oh, there are so many things that we don't learn at
we
school.
don't learn
right?
about entrepreneurship, about money, about scale, and even mindset, and all of those things we need to make money on the real
we
world.
also don't learn how to raise children. We don't learn how to build relationships. So you know, there are many things that they don't teach us at school.
And how was the day you sold Waze? I mean, you woke up, it was a regular day, or did you wake up differently? How was it?
So I think that the most important part, the most significant memory that I have is thinking of all the employees. Waze was, the acquisition of Waze was life-changing event for me, but it was life-changing event for all the 107 employees of Waze. And I always thought that, you know, I brought these people to join my journey. And I'm happy for that. And I'm really happy that I was able to change their life. And that was perhaps the most significant thought that I had and lasted for forever, right? And because at the end of the day, and I will say, you have to be very generous with your team. The team is the one that is building everything, right? So you might be, you know, guiding them and coaching them and setting the objectives and so forth. But the work is being done by the team. And so be extra generous with them because they are the ones that are going to make you successful.
So you mean they had probably equity in the company?
They had a lot of equity.
And when you sold it, they made money also?
Exactly.
Okay. And that's good because if it was only for you, you would be happy, but they wouldn't. So the company may have struggled. You
know, my thesis is that with employees, you need to be extra generous with equity, right? They are part of the journey. And you want them to feel like part of the journey. And you want them to know that if this is going to be successful, then they are going to be extremely rewarded. Yes, I think this way. We have 33 partners here in our group. And some of them started the journey with me, and some of them reached high levels. They would never think about it. But I'm happy, and they're happy with me. That's very important also. So I want all of your employees to have equity. Me too, but now this depends on them. But we created the possibility of this happening. It's culture and results. If we have culture and results, doesn't matter the time, they become partners. Yep. We created this partnership program I'm very happy with. And Waze was not the only successful startup you created. You created a lot of startups and bought some maybe after Waze. How was the journey after Waze? So I left the day after, right, in order to build more startups. And the next unicorn that I built was Moovit. And Moovit is the Waze for public transportation. But I have... And you created afterwards Waze, like the same year or... we started that in beginning of 2012, right? So that was before and then I was, coaching the CEO and mentoring the CEO. But what I have since then is a method of building startups, right? And that method is very unique for me because I engage with those startups before they even start. And I guide them and mentor the CEO. And that's, using my experience as an entrepreneur and my teacher personality to mentor them, coach them, and help them to become more successful. So I've built dozens of startups since Waze. Some of them turned out to be unsuccessful. Some of them died during COVID because of the challenges that we had. But most of them are actually on a path of being successful. One of the things that I'm doing now in Brazil is actually I'm building an investment vehicle that I call the Double Down Fund that is going to invest in my companies, right? In those that are going to become successful, that we are looking at them and basically say, okay, these are very likely to become successful. I'll give you some examples. Pontera is one of my more advanced startups, and this is the one that I started. I actually left Waze in order to become active at Pontera. And what they do is they help American to retire richer. Mm-hmm. Now, the challenge with retirement saving, it's a global challenge, right? When you are young, you don't care. And when you become older, it's too late. Mm-hmm. Because you really need to start saving and investing into your retirement from your first job, right? As early as possible. Mm-hmm. And then what you need to do is actually invest in equity, right? So S&P 500 would be a good way to do that, right? But most of the retirement saving plans, the default is not good, right? The default is like money market, right? Or something that is not going to have enough of return that will allow you to retire with enough funding. And what Pontera does is help that, right? So in the US only, and this is huge market, $15 trillion market, and so we are the bridge for better retirement in that sense. By the way, we started it differently. We call that FeeX, and then we focus on financial fees, and that people didn't know that they're paying them. And then we evolve, and this is where we are today. Some more startups, Fairfly, that deals with biggest secret in travel industry. What happened to airfare after you book your flight? Now, no one knows because no one is comparing prices after they make the reservations, right? But the airfare is going up and down all the time. Mm-hmm. It's going up and down before you're making the reservations and keep on going up and down after. So if this is the price that you paid and this is cancellation fees, when the price drops here, you are leaving money on the table. Mm-hmm. You can actually rebook the same flight at a cheaper price. Now, if you think about it from an individual perspective, it's one thing. But for a corporate, we can save 10% of the travel budget. Mm-hmm. And that goes directly to the bottom line. So this company is very successful, and many of my companies are now exactly at the point of time that you will say, okay, this is where I would like to invest, right? Because product market fit is already demonstrated, $10 million of revenues, profitable, doubling the business year over year, exactly where companies are set to take off, right? And so, and this is, by the way, why I'm building the Double Down Fund in order to invest in those companies today that are set on a trajectory of being successful. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to speak about all of my startups, but we can spend the whole day on doing that.
Yeah, but let me question something. As you just told me, there are somewhat between 60 to 64 people that made 2 unicorns, right? And you are one of them. So we can say it's luck, or we can say you have something different. And when we're talking about yourself, I know it's hard to talk about yourself, but in your opinion, or in the opinion of others close to you, what usually you do different? I mean, what kind of mindset and habits do you have that makes you do things differently or think differently on your business? Because there are 2 unicorns, and as I can see, more to come.
Yeah, so you're right.
Mindset and habits, what do you have differently? Or not differently, but what are those?
So, it's interesting because I remember that after Moovit acquisition, someone came to me and said, look, I don't know if you have a method or you are a lucky son of the beach, and I don't care, I'm going to invest with you, right? So luck is good, right? And I think that what I heard, one of the stories that I heard is about Silverstein, which is the real estate guru of New York today. And he was building a World Trade Center and pretty much everything on the Hudson River. So he's really successful as a real estate. And he was asked how he becomes such a successful real estate developer. And he said, tell you the truth, this is 85% luck and 15% skills, right? Mm-hmm. And then he was asked if he can change one thing, what exactly it's going to be. And he said, I'm going to replace the 15% skills with additional 15% luck. So luck is always good, right? No one is complaining. But for me, luck means that opportunity meets readiness. Mm-hmm. And readiness is something that we can work on. Opportunity, there are many of them. By the way, when you're ready, then you will see way more opportunities than everyone else, right? I think that there are few behaviors that I have that makes that work better, right? So, and part of it is accepting the fact that we don't know. Now, if we don't know, then what we need to do is try, right? And when we try, then we will discover, right? And so if someone will come to me, okay, this is my go-to-market plan, then I will tell you, okay, this is your list of experiments that you're going to make, right? Because when you think about them as experiment, then you say, okay, what I really want to do is qualify or disqualify. I don't care if I qualify or disqualify, but as long as I do it fast. So moving fast is about accepting the fact that we don't know. Focus on the user, on the customer, right? Being always in touch with the customers to understand what works for them and what doesn't work for them. This is how you make progress. And so it's the method of allowing you to try and error and move fast that is increasing the likelihood of being successful. And when I essentially take that and, guide mentor my CEOs and help them to become successful, then I can do that more than just one at a time. I can do that with 8 companies, right? And that's my secret sauce, right? And I think that part of it is now is that something that that other people have? Oh, definitely, yes. A lot of people have that. Maybe not as many, but a lot of people have the same behavior that makes them successful.
So, from what I can see, it's probably 2 things: accepting the fact that we don't know, so we try, we make a list of experiments and do it fast, and we stop fast because we don't know. And the second is focus on the user, always in contact with customers.
On the value that you create to the user.
Creating value, of course. On creating value.
But you learn the value by having a dialogue with the user, right? So the focus is on the problem, right, or on the value that you create. But you realize that when you speak with the users, right? So if you'll tell me users are wrong, then you are wrong.
Okay. Last but not a quick question, but I want to go deeper onto this one. Is on key principles that should guide an entrepreneurial successful journey. We talked a lot about this, but in your opinion, what are the key principles that makes a business successful? For example, business model, sales team, a good CEO. Can you list some of the key principles that comes to your mind, and then we may dive deeper into some of those?
Resilience, making hard decisions with conviction. Listening to customers.
So by resilience, you mean making hard decisions
No,
with
resilience is resilience, right? This is never give up, right? Making hard decisions with conviction. Listening to customers. Or understanding your customers or your users. I actually have a very good story about that. And probably agility, right? Because in particular, when you are building startup, and this is really the difference between startup and in a corporate, right? So in a corporate, you know what happens, right? So this is my product, this is my sales, the sales process or pricing model or whatever it is, my business model, this is my growth strategy. I know everything. In a startup, you know nothing, right? You have a vision, and then you need to figure out product market fit, and then after that, you need to figure out the business model, and after that, you need to figure out growth. And all those journeys, each one of them is going to be a long roller coaster journey of failures. But moving from one phase to another phase, it's really challenging because everything that was important up until now is not important anymore. Now we focus on the next part of the journey. So moving to the next part of the journey is something that is really dramatic in a startup and not that important in a corporate because we don't have that. One of the things that, as I mentioned earlier, Steve Wozniak wrote the foreword to my book. I met Steve Wozniak for the first time about 10 years ago. We spoke at a conference in Guatemala. And the organizer of the conference, we were both keynote. So I think that he was opening and I was closing the day, or maybe it was the other way around. And the evening before, the organizer of the conference arranged for a dinner. And so I went to the dinner with Steve Wozniak. Now, we have to realize that when I grew up, Steve Wozniak was my technological guru, right? He was the technological guru of the world, and also for me, and that was an opportunity for me for the first time in my life to meet my guru. And, I know that this is dinner, but the only thing that would matter for me is actually to have a selfie with him. So I took out my iPhone, and I was lucky to have an iPhone. And with the iPhone, when you take pictures, you can click here. But you can also use the volume button right here. And this is exactly what I did. I did a selfie with him like that, and I used the volume button, and he said, "Finally." And I said, "Finally what?" I said, "Finally someone using it the way that I meant it to be." Now you think about it and you say, okay, what exactly is that? But the iPhone was an evolution, right? An evolution from a PDA and smartphone and digital camera. This is how we used to take pictures with digital cameras, clicking right here where the volume button is. So it made perfect sense, except the fact that people are using it differently. Now, I do that occasionally when I have a lot of audience, and this is maybe a question that you would like to ask your audience. When you're using Waze, Waze guides you to your destinations in two different ways, right? So it shows you on the screen which turns to make, right? But it also guides you via audio, turn right, turn left, and so forth. And then I ask the audience, if you are watching the screen, raise your hand. And about 70% of the people are going to raise their hand. And I ask them, okay, if you are listening to the audio, raise your hand. And then I have about 25% raising their hand. And I ask them to look around you. You don't know that there are other people that are using it differently. And to be frank, you don't care. And now you do know that there are people that are using it differently, and you still don't care. But if you're building the product and you don't know how your product is being used, then you're building the wrong product. And there's only one way that you can find that out. Watch the users. You have to be out there with the customers, with the users, to see, not only to speak with them, but to actually see what they're doing with your product and how they perceive the value, because this is what's going to make you successful. There is a chapter here that calls sample of one, right?
Sample of one.
At the end of the day, as a user, I'm an excellent sample of one person. That's it. There are other people. Now, if you're building product and you don't understand that and you think that you are the user, you are building the wrong product.
That's good. Yes. And you told us about hard decisions, and of course they're always hard to make. But what was probably the hardest decision you've already made? The one that you thought like 2, 3, 4 times before making it. It was scary, hard to make, but you did it anyway, and it kind of improved the business in a way.
So number one is that when you choose a path, you don't know what it would be like if you will choose a different path, right? If people would ask me whether or not it was the right decision to sell Waze back in 2013, then I will tell you they are right decisions or no decisions. Because when you make a decision, you don't know what it would be like if you will choose a different path. If you will tell me, oh, Waze today would be worth way more than $1.1 billion, absolutely it is. But what we don't know is whether or not it would become what it is today without that decision back then. And so this is really important. There are right decisions or no decisions. Now, in most cases, we do know what is the right decision. We have our gut feeling that tells us, okay, we should do it or not. Gut feeling, by and large, taking all the experience that we have into a single moment and making the decision. And in general, it's accurate in about 75 to 80% of the cases. So trust your gut feeling in that sense. Now, if you have no clue, then you don't have gut feeling, and then you don't know. People often ask me for tools to make hard decisions. I tell them a few stories. One of them is when I was young, one day I came to my dad and I say, I have these two options and I don't know which one to choose. And he reached out to his pocket and got a coin out and say, I'm going to flip the coin. and before the coin drops, you're going to make the decision. So forcing the gut feeling is a good idea, right? I did that recently with one of our children. We have 7. And she was actually in a position that she was struggling whether or not to choose A or B. And I told her, imagine that there is a new coin in the world, and it has 2 sides. One says A, and that one says B. And you are going to flip the coin. What do you want to happen? Which side do you want to show up, right? Because this is like externalizing the gut feeling. In most cases, we know what it is. We're looking for confirmation. In particular, when it comes to building awesomeness of an organization, this book speaks about what kind of dialogues to have with the team, right? So if there is someone that you think shouldn't be there, right, and you're not sure, go and speak with some of the key employees that work with this person and ask them the following: how sorry you are going to be if this person would leave, right? So you want to ask yes-no questions in order to decide. If you are asking for a scale, then scale doesn't help you. Oh, 74%. So what does it mean? Is that better than 73? Is that significantly better than 72? What is it, right? Yes or no. When we have those yes or no, then you are able to make the hard decisions. If you don't narrow it down into these questions that are only yes or no, then you get stuck, because then you are undecisive, and then you don't get the confirmation to what you think is the right decision. Yes or no?
Yes. Uri, you just mentioned your dad, and I was watching your videos. As I've told you, I have like an hour and a half journey to my job every day. That's why I'm moving closer to here. But from the videos I was watching, you mentioned your dad 2 times. And this was the 3rd time I saw you mention your dad. The other one was something like your dad telling you when you were younger about when you don't know how much you're paying too much.
That was, by the way, the trigger to launch Pontera.
And now the flip a coin story. Did your dad had an impact on your business life anyhow?
Of course he did.
Yes. He was like a mentor?
He was my mentor. And to a certain extent, I would say, he died some 17 years ago, right? So, but I still carry many of those lessons that I learned with me, and sharing that with the world. So to a certain extent, I would say he still lives within me, and I'm sharing this wisdom with others. So in that sense, he's still alive.
Yeah. Yes, because a man only dies when his name is pronounced the last time, right?
Yeah.
And just to finish here, I would like to let everyone know about your book. Again, your book is available in Amazon, and I'll leave a link in the description if you want to buy it. And I highly recommend, because we talked for an hour, maybe a little more than an hour. But from what I can see, the book has more than 400 pages. So there are a lot of content we didn't cover. And do you want to say some final words about your book?
So look, when I wrote the book, what I had in my mind is that your audience, when they read the book, it's going to help them to become successful. And for me, this is fulfilling my destiny about value creation, right? And make the world a better place, right? If I can help more people to become more successful, then the world will become a better place. Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, it's really covering a lot of aspects, 400 pages. And some people told me, oh, this is like having you just next to me, whispering in my ear all the time. So imagine that you can bring this experience. I would like to finish with a story about experience. So a very successful CEO that was shy away from the media, never gave any interview. And one day, Thiago called him up and asked him, give me 2 minutes. And he said, yes, I'll give you 2 minutes. And so the first question that he was asked is, how you become such a successful CEO? And say 2 words, right decisions. Okay, but how do you know how to make those right decisions? 1 word, experience. Okay, but how do you gain this experience? 2 words, wrong decisions. So think about my experience helping you to become more successful.
Yes, thank you for that. And I wish you could inspire more successful entrepreneurs to share their journeys. And hopefully we'll have more teachers in the future, because we don't learn this at school. And thank you so much for your participation, for coming to Brazil and to writing this book. And I hope my audience reads it and improve their business and have more success. And just to finish, Uri, do you use any kind of social networks?
Mainly LinkedIn.
LinkedIn. How can we find you in LinkedIn?
Uri Levine at LinkedIn.
Uri Levine.
Yeah.
Okay, so people follow Uri Levine on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for the participation and see you next time. Se você quiser ganhar um desses livros aqui assinado, você vai na nossa última foto. Acabamos de postar a foto juntos aqui. Você vai nos comentários, escreve Waze, tá? W-A-Z-E. Waze. Vai lá e a gente vai escolher algum de vocês. Alguns de vocês, na verdade, porque são alguns livros. A gente vai presentear e vai mandar pra você, tá bom? Vai lá na foto, escreve Waze e marca um amiguinho.